Hey there, and welcome. So, Side Effects is holding a new Houdini art challenge called Mardini, which is starting on the 1st of March. The idea of it is to create an artwork in Houdini based on a daily prompt. That prompt is basically just a theme to base your artwork around. It's open to anyone who would like to enter, and if you do enter, it doesn't have to be every day. Last year, there were prizes for Best Daily, Best Weekly, Best Collection, Best Overall Artwork, and for entering every day. So, as you may know, I won Best Collection in last year's Who Lie Art Challenge, and I've decided to do a daily review video for each day's entries. I'm going to be talking about the winning entries, what makes them so good, and then I'm also going to be talking about some of the other entries. I'll go over what I like about them, what I think could maybe be changed, and how they could have been winning entries in my opinion. So if you'd like me to review your entry, feel free to tag me on Instagram at 9_between. So with all of that comes a bit of a disclaimer. Everything that I'm saying here is my own opinion. It doesn't make it right or wrong. I'm just trying to give a critique that the artist can work from and hopefully something that you can learn from as well. I'm not trying to make fun of or insult or belittle any of the artists. I'm merely just trying to give some feedback in an entertaining way. So let's get straight into it. In the third place in the images category for day 5 Crash, we have this entry by NH Pratusha. And what we have over here is this crashed aeroplane, right? And they've put it into this environment. They have these vines growing on it. And so it's sort of an aged take on Crash, right? This is the aftermath of a crash, not showing the actual crash, which is an alternative way of going about it, right? It's quite a smart way. This little rock feature over here adds good detail. There's decent texturing on the actual plane. The only thing that I might suggest are a few changes to lighting. This lighting feels very uniform. There's no real variation. So, add some bright spots, some dark spots. The other thing is, I don't believe that there's displacement on this ground, and if there is, I think you can push it up a bit more, or it might be that the light is hitting it straight on, and so you don't get any of the detail in that. The other thing that I might suggest is this grass over here. If you could increase the amount so that it's more fleshed out, and then you could make it maybe a bit patchy, increase the variation, have a bit of bending and things like that. But overall, a good conceptual entry and a different take on the topic of Crash. So we have this entry from Marius, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not actually sure what this is. I think it's a helmet, but I might be mistaken, so sorry if I got that wrong. But the main element of this is the motion and the color. So it doesn't actually matter what this is, because you're getting across the idea of a crash. You have these shards over here that are all breaking off. You're keeping to a very simple color scheme, and this color scheme goes well together, right? You have gold with white. There's very good lighting on this, some darkness under at the bottom, these bright areas towards the top, and some shallow depth of field differentiating the foreground and the background. So you're getting the idea of motion, because all of this has sort of velocity blur, and you're very close in. You're kind of seeing all these shards flying around. So there's a lot of dynamism in the shot, even though it's a still, and you do get across the idea of crash. So yeah, very nice rendering that they have going on here. And the actual modeling is impressive. There's a lot of detail in things like the crevices, the edges over there. There's some nice edge detail. If we just take a look over there, you can see good edge detail. So all of that make it an interesting entry to look at. And that is the second place entry. So great work by Marius. And in first place for the images category, we have this entry by GT3D 2019. When I saw this, I immediately thought that this would be a top 3 entry, just because of the level of detail and the take on the topic. It's quite unique and it's a fun take. It's interesting to look at. You sort of have this flippy up front smashing into the crash test pillar, and he's got all of these crash test symbols on him. And so this is a great use of the geometry provided in Houdini. He's done a bit of a simulation over here. I'm assuming this is just vellum to get some decent deformation. He's also got this motion blur on the back to give you the idea of movement. So there's a lot of dynamism to the shot. There's nothing in the background that's too distracting to take away from this. So once you've looked at this, your eye can linger, and then you begin to notice all the other crash test dummies and the little bits of detail like the stand clear at the back and all of these symbols at the top. So overall, it's very impressive because they've managed to flesh out a full environment. The environment feels realized as there's a lot going on. There's a lot of detail in the floor, a lot of these sort of markings and things. And so it really helps this along. So yeah. Amazing entry by GT3D 2019. Love the way that she set up this environment. In third place, in the animation category, we have this entry by Organic Computer. And for once, I think I pronounced your name correctly. So let's take a look at what we have. Right, so there's a couple of interesting elements to this. Firstly, we have this sort of flying saucer type thing. And something to note about the shot is that it's once again an atmospheric shot. You have interesting lighting and sort of this fog in the background that catches on these interesting colors. The color palette that they have is very interesting. They have this blue with the purple and some green elements. So as far as color schemes go, they did a great job over here. The actual element of crash has been well realized, and they have a good camera move with it. So in a lot of films, they often have this sort of camera move where off in the distance, there's an impact and you have an almost handheld camera effect where you're using zoom to see what's going on. And so that's quite an interesting way to do it. And then they have the camera move coming back. All the checkboxes are ticked for this one. You know, you have the element of the crash, you have an interesting color palette, you have good motion. The only thing that I might suggest is just a slight improvement to the quality of texturing, but you know, that's not a big deal. That's not what the focus is on this one. So yeah, cool entry by Organic Computer. In second place, we have this entry by El Cantola. And they have this symbol, and it's being hit by the drumstick. So what I really like about this is the concept. They were smart enough to think of a concept that aligns with crash that only exists in slow motion, right? If this was real time, you wouldn't get the effect, but they have this slow motion movement, right? This only deforms in slow motion. And so they really make the most of the conceptual idea. So as far as I can see, I imagine this is just a vellum setup again. One thing that I really like about this are these little dust particles. It's a great touch. As this gets hit, as you can see, there's all these little dust particles sitting on it. When it gets hit, all the dust flies off. That's awesome. Also like that there's a shadow depth field. This Mardini font up front makes it feel like the brand of symbol or whatever it may be. So yeah, I don't really have too much advice or anything about this. I think it's a great entry. I'm sure that they wanted this to maybe be a higher quality render. There is quite a bit of noise, but it doesn't really take away from it. It is a good entry. So yeah, awesome work by El Cantola. And in first place, we have this entry by Jason Harmon. Let's take a look at what we got. I personally love this entry. This one's great. I think on the forum they had something like pulling one out before the time runs out or something. And so, you know, it's like a double play on a topic, which is awesome. The thing that I love about this, actually everything, but let me break it down. So the color scheme, the rendering, all in a very similar style, right? You have this very simple hand, which also saves you on modeling, right? You don't have finger joints or anything. It's super basic. You have this little watch strap. All of this is extremely basic geometry, just textured well. The background, a great choice of color, and the lighting on this is nearly perfect. As for the actual shot, this little flare that they add over here adds an incredible amount. It adds personality to the shot, and then you have, you know, this very relatable scene where he's kind of wiggling his fingers and he stops and pauses. As for the actual dynamics, this is awesome. The fact that it's stable at this point, all the while they're trying to pull this out, awesome stuff. Everything about this is brilliant. Yeah, I can't say anything bad about it at all. So yeah, Jason Harmon, love it, man. Awesome. Time for Mardini review. One day, when Houdini forum likes are treated as a form of cryptocurrency, I think Robert McGee will appreciate what I'm doing here. But until then, so this entry from Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I think that this is awesome. There's nice lighting on the background, a good color scheme, the sort of bluish glass with the golden numbers. I think the only thing is that the glass doesn't quite look like glass. I'm not exactly sure why. It might be an IOR issue, or it could just be an issue with the actual geometry. The edges feel kind of smooth, and so it feels more like plastic rather than glass. But this actual shot is very nice. There's some good detail to it. The numbers are sort of falling around. It's a good shot that could have been refined a bit more and been an awesome shot. So yeah, Mark, nice entry. So in my opinion, this is a winning entry. Perhaps it didn't align with the topic, I don't know. but I really like this entry. The amount of detail on the light bulb, the sort of setup for the render, the conceptual idea, you know, this light bulb should be the thing that's being smashed, but it's actually the hammer. The hammer's breaking in all these places. There's a very detailed sort of destruction going on over here and in here. And there's two different types of destruction. This is that sort of wood fracture, and this is more of a concrete fracture. They also have lens flare. Everything about this is great. I think that this deserves an honorable mention at least. So yeah, awesome work by Oscar. Oscar, I remember you. So this entry by Jonas F. It is a brilliantly rendered entry. That's the main thing that I see going for it. It has a bit of an ominous feel as well to it. These sort of feel like robots or something. But the actual texturing is great. If you look over here, there's that sort of speckling. Even the texture on the side of the head has some sort of wear to it. And if you take a look, there's even variation in roughness. Over here, if you look at this area, you can see that the light dips in a different way and reacts differently compared to an area like that or that. There's lots of interesting speckling going on. Once again, I think that this is a great entry. I don't have anything bad to say about it, and that's kind of been a weird theme so far with this one, is that I'm not really giving any helpful feedback. All the entries were actually really good. So yeah, nice entry by Jonas F. And here we have this absolute power move from Tom Knoll, posting an entry about fatal error crashes in Houdini in a Houdini competition on the official Houdini website. I love this entry, man. This made me audibly chuckle when I first saw it. And this is the first time I saw what it says in the background. I just want to win once. Dude, sick. At the end, actually, I thought it was a still when I first saw it. And I was like, that's a great entry already. Doesn't need to do anything more. And then I realized that he actually doubles down on the topic. And he has this at the end. And this is pretty good. So he has this. As it smashes through, I find it really cool that he had the detail of, you know, the different colors on the screen as the sort of fails. The only thing I would say is that the lighting on this is a bit weird, so the background is very well lit. I'd say maybe make the background dark so you just focus on the foreground over here. Give the table a slight texture, but like, yeah. I think your entry is great either way. Conceptually the best entry I've seen. So yeah, man, sick stuff. This one from Jonathan Formosa, I have to give like an honorable mention to this because the simulation is great. He's got a lot of things going on here. Of course, these little pieces over here, I'm not sure what they're from, but they look a little bit weird. Other than that though, the simulation's great. I love when it hits over here. You have the actual keys separating, you have the wood fracture. He has the sort of painted effect on the outside, and inside it looks like wood. It's a great entry. Just dynamics wise, it looks incredible. You know, he sort of got this, I don't know if he's using soft constraints, but it might just be the way that wood fracture works in this case. But you have the sort of main fracture line down here and the dip in over there. Everything's nice about this. The only thing I could maybe say is, I don't know. Actually don't know. It's a good entry. So here's another honorable mention. This one's from Brazilian Picture Company. I don't know what's going on today, man. Maybe I'm in like a good mood or something, but every entry seems great. Like all of the entries today seem awesome. This one over here, the reason I wanted to mention it is because of this. This sort of shot builds up an expectation that these two are going to smash into each other, and you might have some sort of vellum interaction, or they're going to break apart as RBD, but then he smashes into the mirror. And I thought that's a brilliant touch. So conceptually, I love this one. The fact that you can't tell it's a mirror, and then on impact, it sort of shatters. It's a great entry. So yeah, another honorable mention in my opinion. This one's another one like Pink Fleshy Blob, where I think that this has so much personality, and I don't know why, but I really like this as a character. I would watch a whole series about it. So if Netflix wants to adapt, you know, Rio Kanda. Oh, what am I watching now? This isn't, oh, no, spoiler alert. Yeah, so I think that your Day 5 entry was cool. I like the feel of it, but I really like this character above all. If this was fleshed out and you had almost a mini series that you had to make, where this just has certain adventures every day, man, I would watch it. I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I think it's cool. I just wanted to quickly talk about this entry from Carl Drifter, just because the second half of this is incredible. This over here looks amazing. This sort of nebula type shot, and there's just such good detail in this. My only thing is that the first half of this doesn't really align with the second half. Like, this isn't at the same quality as this. But I think maybe if you had to like simplify it down a bit, so maybe instead of doing the planets, because I know it is tricky doing the sort of planets or stars type thing, but like my entry from last year for space was one of the most difficult ones I did, just because it's really difficult getting it to look good. But yeah, this over here, I think it would be cool if it was maybe just two gems or something smashing into each other instead of stars or the planets, because that's tricky to get looking right. But the second half looks so good. Like, this is amazing. So yeah, I thought I would just share this. I guess it's another honorable mention. So I just wanted to mention this entry by Mumu. Because the actual rendering of this, I love. I love that there's this sort of iridescence, and you'll see this when it breaks up. There's really nice play with the light. The actual shader that they used for this is great. So the one thing that I did want to mention was the starting point. So you can see that this is sort of segmented, and this is because you have to pre-fracture when you're using RBD, right? It's not dynamically fracturing. There's a fracture that you set up, and then you glue it together. Now, this can be avoided by using something known as an RBD connected faces, I believe. And then you time shift it to frame 1 or your starting frame, and then you transfer or attribute copy the attributes over to the actual rigid body simulation, and then you do an RBD disconnected faces. So I'll have all of that up on screen. At the moment, I'm just talking while looking at the forum, but on the screen, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And that will sort of fix this issue where you can see the fracture before it fractures. So other than that, I think this is lovely. There's some nice detail in the fracture. So yeah, cool. Another honorable mention for Tanita. Conceptually, this is awesome. I also like the execution of having these two glasses up front. I really like this. So, you know, someone's working in Houdini. I see nodes in 3 panels. That screams Houdini for me, but then they have this where blue screens and switches off. I think it's cool. I think the only place that this is falling short is that it's not sort of textured realistically. I think for a shot like this to really shine, you'd have to sort of texture the TV set, maybe add a little bit of sort of grunge on the screen, do a bit of a trick where, you know, that sort of static on the TV or computer screen or whatever it is, and then give a little bit of light on the front so you can see the actual monitor. But I think that it's a great conceptual entry, and also compositionally it's very interesting. I like that you have these two sort of glasses up front. But yeah, I think that this has a lot of potential to be awesome. So that's it for today's review. I hope this was helpful and entertaining. I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye.